tell me the backstory of the Honda Insight.
So again, if our listeners have listened to our previous mod, we were in the Audi A2.
Yeah.
And if they haven't, we were in an Audi A2. It's 25 years of the Honda Insight.
Can't believe.
I know.
Well, I can believe it's 25 years of the Honda Insight. I can't quite believe it's the same age as the Audi A2. I can't believe either was 25 years ago somehow.
I think that is something we, as people of a certain age, suffer from now. Everything seems like yesterday is actually quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so unlike the A2, which I hadn't driven before, because it just finished production when I was joining this career, I actually drove one of these in 1999 as an undergraduate. My dad came to visit me for the weekend, and for reasons that I'd never got to the bottom of, he had one of these for a weekend and he brought it up, and I had a go in it. And I imagine in 1999 what this car was like. I was driving a Citroen Visa at the time. That was my daily driver, so admittedly not, an entirely representative modern vehicle.
I was testing some cars as a journalist, but I never drove one of these at the time. I don't think I drove one of these until 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
And so what do you think? In 1999, one of these turns up. You've been driving cars that are from the 70s and 80s.
80s, yeah.
What do you think of this when this rocks up?
Well, do you know what? The one thing, yes, it looks the way it does, which is very funky and aerodynamic and cool little coupe. It was the start-stop.
Oh,
so
really?
we drove it around town in Cheltenham, where I was, and came to a set of traffic lights and stopped, and it cut the engine, and then you put it in gear, and it fires the engine up, and that sort of blew my tiny mind back then. And I know Volkswagen were doing something similar with their Formel E badged Polos and Golfs in the mid-80s.
What were they badged? Formel
E, yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had like crazy gear ratios. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then instead of 1, 2, 3, and instead of 4, you had an E for economy.
Wow. Right.
So it was an ultra.
And it was very overdriven, wasn't it?
Yes. So I'd never come across something like that. So that, as I say, blew my tiny mind. Obviously, it had digital instruments, which were incredibly cool. And because I was a young, naive so-and-so, I didn't really get my head round what was really important about it was the fact it was a hybrid.
Yeah.
And I think it was, I don't know about Europe, but in North America, where these, as we'll discuss, sold exceptionally well for quite a very low volume car, it beat the Prius onto the market by a few months.
Right.
So they're very different hybrids, aren't they?
Yeah, and Toyota went out of their way, I think, to make the Prius not seem weird.
Yeah.
Is that fair? I mean, it's quite a frumpy looking thing, the Gen 1 Prius, isn't it?
It's very.
But you drive one today and you go, well, it just feels like a car.
Yeah.
And there was nothing terribly wacky about how it drove or what it did. You just put it in drive and away you went.
Yeah. Whereas this is, so it's their first hybrid. It's their integrated motor assist.
That's it.
So it's effectively got a motor on the crankshaft, hasn't it?
So yeah, so transverse engine at the front.
Yeah. 3-cylinder, 1 litre.
Oh yeah. And a motor assisting that on the crankshaft before the clutch, before the gearbox.
I think so, yes. And then you get the 5-speed manual gearbox.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know this until today, you could get one with a CVT. I don't think that ever came to the UK.
No, I don't remember.
I might be proved wrong. But then...
Well, not very many came to the UK at all, did they?
No,
because you also looked up earlier the sales volumes.
I did, yes. So in North America, so the production span was quite long. It was nearly 10 years, I think.
It's a long time.
I can only imagine, much like that Audi A2, which lost a lot of money, they were doing their damnedest to try and get back as much of their investment. Because this, again, is all aluminium, isn't it?
Yeah.
And unlike the A2, it's a monocoque, so it's not space frame, and I think the panels form part of the stressed
structure.
Yeah, we're just turning around here, but it's a bit chaotic.
Slightly chaotic. It is. We won't get around there, so yeah, you better go.
Is that the same Seat Tarraco? I think it's a different Tarraco. That's 2 Tarracos in a day. I know you're saying we don't see very many.
You're saying we don't see very many Seat Tarracos. Yeah, no, you're right. That is the second one.
Yeah.
Because the other one was clean.
It was. And it's the same colour though, isn't it?
Yeah, same colour. So either it has been dirt tracking since we saw it, or it's a different... Maybe there's a kind Seat dealer around here. That we are in leafy Oxfordshire.
We are. Maybe a number
which
of...
is the home of the large SUV.
It is. There's quite a few about.
There's quite a few about.
Anyway, we've got sidetracked again. So yeah, aluminium structure. So it costs a lot to make.
Yeah. So presumably it's also an expensive car to repair these days if you...
It is. So and you've also got the added complication of the battery.
Yeah.
So it's a nickel metal hydride battery, which is quite old tech now.
It is.
And I think they eventually die, and you have to replace them.
Well, there is a person. I forget where he is. I think he's in the north of England. But he will either replace individual cells in the battery. I've seen a picture of it, and it looks like little individual cell tubes, and he will swap some out, or I think replace it with a better type of battery.
Okay.
Better type of not nickel metal hydride cells. I don't know if they're lithium ion or what.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that is an effective thing.
Now, it's funny you say that, because in looking up about this car, in the States there is quite a cottage industry. What's the American version of a cottage? A ranch industry? I don't know.
Condominium industry.
A condo. In supplying aftermarket batteries to these. Because, as we were getting to, in the States, they sold 14,000 of these, I think.
Oh, isn't it?
Which is quite a lot.
For a car like... I mean, I know it's a bigger market than the UK.
Yeah.
But that is a lot.
Well,
Do you reckon?
It is when you consider... Guess how many they sold across the entirety of Europe?
Oh, well, did we not say that yet? Go on, tell me again.
392.
That's mad.
So this car that we're in at the moment has probably got to be one of the rarest and most exclusive cars on the road currently. Someone could drive up in a Aventador, and I think this would be a rarer car, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, I picked it up about 24 hours ago. I have been looked at quite a lot in it. I think a lot of people have gone, what's that, or it's one of those.
Yeah, it's a mad...
But they're still really affordable, aren't they?
I think
to buy, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's a very niche vehicle, but yeah, the classic. It's not really a classic, even though it's 25 years old.
Yeah.
It's not Honda, obviously. The sort of people who are keen on old Hondas. It's all Type R stuff, isn't it?
Well, here's the question, right? Because Honda people don't buy CRVs, right? You're right. They buy Type Rs, VTEC.
Yeah, S2000s.
Blah blah blah. Does this appeal to and did it at the time, appeal to the people who want to make a statement and go, I have a Prius or I have a hybrid? Or did it appeal to the sort of Honda engineering-y tech heads who love Hondas, sometimes not weird engineering, but the purity of engineering that actually a lot of car enthusiasts like Hondas.
That's an interesting...
Because of.
That's an interesting point. I don't know.
That's not a very good sentence, but you know what I mean.
I know. I don't know. I think they must be in the middle, because it's a fascinating car, and I know in the States where they sold quite a few of them, it's got a huge following, and you've probably heard of the hypermiling community, haven't you?
Yep.
So this car is like, it is the genesis of all hypermiling. It's the go-to car. It's the GOAT, I believe. And they regularly, in the States, they regularly clock 100 mpg and something like this, which is incredible. And the Prius is a very clever thing, but this it feels in some respects, and I may be going too far with this, because it's all aluminium. It's like there's a sort of a mini NSX feel about it. It feels like it's been engineered by people passionate about cars, and because it's so light, it drives. We go through a few corners here. It corners nice and flat, doesn't it? You can carry speed through there, but it's got 165 section tyres on it. I mean, it's not. It's scooting through corners because it's low and flat, low and light.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's not a quick car, is it? It is not a powerful car.
No.
By any stretch. But when you start to get up to speed, and it's also really long geared, right? So yesterday I thought, how long is second? And I got to 70 and I was still pulling in second.
What?
So it's really long geared. But as soon as you get to like 1800 RPM, the little light on the dashboard goes, you should change up now.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's like it wants to be sort of pinking and lugging out, and do you know what I mean? It's like it wants to be, just getting going almost.
It's mad. So when you pull away, you're almost, before you fully let the clutch out first, it wants you to go up to second.
Yeah.
And then it's up to third.
Yeah. And it feels like you're pulling away in second anyway, because it's so high geared in first.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so it's not fast, but by the time I was up to sort of dual carriageway motorway speeds, it feels like it goes without the application of much power, because it's so aerodynamically efficient and so light. It feels like it wants to go. I mean, you can imagine if it had a lot of power, blimey, it would fly.
Yeah.
It would do an astonishing top speed I reckon.
Well, because aerodynamically, what is it?
You told me this earlier. It's 0.25 CD.
0.25, yeah. Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But then also the A2 matches that in its most aerodynamic form.
I was really surprised by that, because this is so teardroppy, and the teardrop being the perfect aerodynamic shape.
Yeah.
And I put it down to the Audi being cleverer with some of the surfacing or something like that, and thinking, oh well, because it's a bit newer. But it's not any newer. That's the thing.
No.
The Audi seems a more modern car to me than this, and I don't know whether it's design or interior feel or what.
I think a lot of it is this interior feels very 80s.
Yeah.
Honda.
Yeah.
And the tiny buttons on the stereo.
It does have a cassette player, and the Audi.
With Dolby B noise reduction, which isn't as good as Dolby C.
Is it not?
No. Apparently not. My dad was hot on that. He likes
really?
metal cassettes as well. Chrome.
Really?
Chrome cassettes.
What the
magnetic tape is. You get chrome cassettes, don't you? And metal cassettes, and then you just have plain ferrous ones.
Oh.
Chrome is the.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. Sorry, I thought you meant the casing for a moment.
No. Yeah.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
I once played a chrome cassette on his home cassette deck without selecting the chrome function. He wasn't very happy with me.
Why does it upset the tape?
It uses a different head, I think.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I did a lot of things that upset my dad, because he's very particular about stuff.
Yeah.
And I can be quite slapdash about things. So that's right. There you go. Anyway, there's a little insight into my home life.
You didn't even play on the pun of insight, did you?
No, I didn't know.
I was waiting for it. I was thinking any minute now, there's going to be...
I know, I'm disappointed myself I didn't see that. Terrible.
There's no... Is the battery under just back there? Is the battery just back there?
Just behind us. So there's that little compartment in the boot, isn't it, underneath the floor, and I think it's just ahead of that.
And even though it is a hybrid system, I know it's only got 2 seats, and I know it's very small, it's 800 What's the kilos?
800. It starts at 835 kilo for a non-air conditioned manual car.
Right.
It's 850 and a bit kilos for a manual air conditioned car, which this one is. Yeah. And it's 890 if you have air conditioning in the CVT. But that's an incredibly small amount of mass.
Not a lot of it, is there? And this is doing now. So the motorway was closed. A motorway was closed on my way over today, so I ended up on very busy, very slow roads, and I had to accelerate quite quickly out of some junctions. But before that, I picked it up yesterday. I drove it about 75 miles to get home, and it was doing 80 miles to the gallon. However, if you buy a brand new Toyota Yaris, I reckon you do 65, 70 already. So if you were to put a modern powertrain in this, and I know people will go, yeah, but if you just put an electric motor in, you won't burn anything at all, will you, you idiot? But there is something I find quite appealing about going a long way on not a lot of burnt fuel.
Yeah.
And I think a modern powertrain, even without having to have a big battery back there, if this had a Yaris engine in it, and the Yaris hybrid system, what would it do? 90, 100 to the gallon?
Easy, I'd have thought. And you're right. I mean, let's not go down the road of the battery versus internal combustion, because this is a 25-year-old car, so it's done the heavy lifting of its CO2 output already.
Yeah.
So if you could keep something like this going with a clever engine in it, but that's a sort of different argument. But I know given this is old tech and that battery, again, this is a Honda. This is part of Honda's heritage fleet.
Yeah.
I don't know what condition the battery is.
No,
in.
I don't know. It's got 75,000 miles on it, this car, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I think
something like that.
And I don't know if they've sent it off to have the battery tweaked or whatever.
I mean, I've got nearly full battery here, so it's clearly taking charge and holding it.
I never get the impression it's boosting low-end torque very much.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I know it says it up there. You put your foot down and it says assist, but blimey, it is not a quick car, is it?
So I mean, it's saying assist here. We're in 5th gear at 45 miles an hour. I've got my foot down and we're still at 45 miles an hour. We are going up a slight gradient, and at 44 miles, it's actually telling me to change down, which it doesn't like to do normally.
Yeah, like to do that.
That's like it's giving up.
Yeah.
But then, it's got, so it's a 1 litre 3-cylinder engine with 74 horsepower, 73 horsepower. Then the electric motor adds another 20 and a bit. So it's 90 something overall.
It's about right, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It is assisting. I'm being unkind.
It's not much.
To what is an old car with a small engine.
Yeah, it wants you to change up early and use the electrical assist, but despite a bar graph telling you electrical assist is happening, you don't feel it much.
Is there? We had this discussion in the Audi A2. My final question to you was going to be with that car: if you were going to make the A2 today, what would you do? And the upshot basically was you wouldn't. Because Audi tried it, and then BMW tried it with the i3, and that's just not the way we have decided to make the world work. We've decided to make the world work by batteries and things, which is fine. But lightweight, small, compact cars, lightweighting is so expensive that you're not doing it, because cars are uncompetitive to buy unless they're exotic sports cars, whatever. If you were to make an Insight today, what do you think it would look like?
Well, I mean,
there is a BMW i3.
Yeah, that's another loss-leading.
Really good looking thing.
It is. I think they're, again, massively underrated.
Yeah.
Clever cars. It's such a shame that clever cars. I don't know whether it's partly our fault as an industry, we don't shout about them enough, or whether there's just not enough of them anymore.
I think we talk about them quite a lot. I sort of think I've talked about them quite a lot.
Yeah,
I bang on them too much, I think. I always think I do, anyway.
I worry there's a certain, we're going to digress here, there's a certain automotive television program that came to prominence, that was around for a long time, but came to prominence in the early 2000s, that sort of changed the shape and the nature of what we do, because its emphasis was always on, shall we say, performance and looks and shouty. And it feels like the whole car industry has sort of, bigger is better. And car buyers aren't as interested in interesting. But then I go off.
Does the TV probably reflects that rather than shapes that? Does it? Do you think?
Well, it's an interesting point. I don't know. I suppose it was that height of that culture, wasn't there? Loaded magazine and all that sort of shouty. Maybe I'm overthinking this, aren't I?
I don't know if you're overthinking.
Did you know Loaded magazine's coming back?
I did know Loaded magazine's coming back. Yeah, and is it online or is it print?
I think it's print.
It's print as well. It is print as well, isn't it? Yeah. I know. I read an interview with the new editor the other day.
Okay.
I think, and quite astutely, I suppose, because people could say, "Oh, it's a bit bawdy, it's a bit chauvinistic, blah blah blah." The editor's a woman.
Nice. Well played.
Yeah. So and she was saying, look, there is a section. There are subjects which are not being addressed in current modern magazines, print or online or whatever. There are things we're not talking about. There are things blokes are not talking about, and they used to, and actually it's all right.
Oh, I know nothing about it. I just heard on the rumour, and it surprised me.
I haven't seen them. I think maybe I saw the front cover or something.
Okay. But anyway, we've digressed.
We've digressed slightly. I like magazines and magazine craft, so I'm interested to read
I think that I love magazines. I love making magazines. I think it's I'm surprisingly, when I started in this industry, I thought it would be about the cars, but actually I quite quickly fell in love with putting the magazine together.
You can find,
Yes.
the magazineshop.com/Autocar has the entire Autocar back catalogue going back to 1895. There are a couple of gaps, but they're being filled.
It is fascinating.
It's really good, isn't it?
I've fallen down that wormhole recently.
Oh my goodness!
It's great.
It's just I basically have it. It's like having another hobby. So we've always used to have the print archive in big bound volumes in the basement at work. So if you wanted to go and look something up, you'd go and look, and you'd look through the index cards, and you'd look it up in that magazine, and that would be, fine. And you could lose a little while in the archive, and I would lose a little while in the archive.
Nothing wrong with that.
But now, because it's all online as well, and it's searchable by search term, put in Audi A2 or whatever, try and find the first drive of it. But it's just, and you can put it in quotes like you would in Google, so it exclusively searches for that phrase alone. Search by newest, oldest, best, most appropriate. But because it's so simple to search, the amount of, and also you just, it opens up that issue, and you go, oh, brilliant, and you look at the whole flat plan laid out for that issue, and then I'll sort of go, oh, there's Caterham on that page, so I'll flick on that page, and mate, the hours I have lost, it's not, it's
okay.
It's fine because it's my job, I suppose. But if somebody were looking over my shoulder to register my productivity on the days that I needed something from the archive, is that a grey camo onesie?
It is. You saw that right. In fact, you didn't see it. What was that?
Didn't see it at all. Black and white camouflage one series. Where were we talking about? Yeah. How would you make?
See, now it's an interesting.
How would you make this car today?
Weirdly, against the A2, in some respects, lots of what this car's got has made it's still current. It's sort of set the trend. So that little Suzuki Swift that we drove the other week with the
Renault Clio alongside it. Video available elsewhere on this channel, reader.
That is a different type of hybrid system, because that's a starter generator, but it's a hybridised small capacity petrol engine in a lightweight shell that's good fun to drive and efficient, but it's also affordable.
Yeah, it's under 18 grand, aren't they? I think they start at, which is really good value, I think.
And it's under 1,000 kilos, so it's not as extreme as this, but it's using...
It's actually not that dissimilar to this, is it? Do you know what I mean? If you streamlined a Suzuki Swift, that's what this is. Or this is what that is.
But it's interesting, when we talked about this with the A2, and we concluded, didn't we, that we don't think you'd make that car anymore because it costs too much to make. But and people are going, electric cars are better, and it's like, well, I don't want to start that fight, but we've got to the electric car era because that's what the legislators have made us do. I think if the legislators had turned around and said, unless the majority of your cars are under 1,000 kilos, you're going to get hit with massive fines.
Yeah.
Suddenly the A2 would be a very sensible car. This would be a very sensible car. So legislation, I think, dictates where we end up, doesn't it?
Yes, and did legislation which was based on taxation of CO2 output.
Yeah. That
led to a lot of cars being diesels.
Yes.
And then people could still buy SUVs, and did still buy SUVs. And actually, if you're, it's an interesting point made by. Actually, I talked about him the other day. Vincent Cobbe, the Citroën boss. He said, "Look, if you have an relatively inefficient SUV, it just costs you money because you just stop and fill up more frequently. So it's just expensive. And actually, for 40% of the driving public, that's okay because they have expendable income. They don't care. They'd rather have an SUV than save a few quid a month. However, when it comes to an EV, efficiency becomes that much more important because it's not just cost, it's range and therefore time. So therefore the efficiency argument becomes much more important. So actually, had we made legislation based around efficiency 20 years ago, and I suppose you could argue that CO2 is a sort of rating of efficiency, but it's kind of not really at the same time.
Yeah.
Then actually, instead of buying SUVs, and I, by the way, I'm not a massive SUV basher because I own one.
Yeah. It's sport.
It's not a sport SUV. It's a 4x4. It's a Defender. It's a 4x4. Anyway, what was I saying?
It's CO2. If we bought.
Oh yeah. Then maybe more cars would have been a bit more like this than they are today. You know, smaller frontal area, lighter, swoopier, easier through the air, and if 30 to 40% of all the fuel you burn is aerodynamic drag, which it might well be.
Quite a lot.
It's quite a lot. It is quite a lot. Well, I think there was a stat that we would have used all of the efficiencies made in internal combustion for the past 25 years have been undone by the market shifting towards SUVs. And so basically, had we just been driving exactly the same cars that we've been driving 25 years ago, the same efficiency, it would have made, you may not have had to make any efficiency savings to the engine. It would have still burnt the same amount of fuel.
That seems entirely plausible. I believe that.
And I don't, what I mean? So I've got this running a Defender for the magazine at the moment, and an acquaintance said, "I'm not getting in there." Not somebody I won't name it, but anyway, it's just like nobody needs a car that big. Not interested. I wouldn't even go in it if there was a train strike, which is actually how the conversation came around. It was like, well, blah blah blah. If it comes to it, we can drive. And he's point blank not going in that car. I've seen that car. I'm not going in it. Nobody needs a car like that. Well, people do need it. Some people do need a car like that. Because it can tow 3.5 tons for a start. But anyway, I thought to myself yesterday, right, I'm going to see what efficiency I can get out of that 3-litre straight 6 diesel. I did 45 to the gallon.
I've seen the evidence.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
I
think that's pretty good.
That is very good.
But imagine it were. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't dislike SUVs.
You can't get that engine in
one of these.
In one of these, but in an XF, can you? Say.
No, well, you can't buy an XF anymore either. So no, that is all over.
But if it was in a mid-sized executive saloon car, you'd probably be getting 55 in.
Yeah.
Your nameless acquaintances, I get their argument. I think to say nobody needs a car that size is the incorrect way of going about it. And also, the people who have them, many of them would struggle to justify having them. That doesn't mean the car doesn't have a valid reason for existing, because there will be people that need that.
Yeah.
However,
and also we live in a very small island, and when you go to North America, you may be in North America. The Defender's quite a small vehicle, and the place is massive. The place is huge.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of the manufacturers now they're not backpedaling on EV, but they are readjusting the way they look at it, aren't they? So Mercedes have just binned off this platform, the big platform that would replace EQS and EQE, as I understand it, the replacement.
Yeah, and A-Class is remaining on sale for longer. Yeah. We need to wrap up soon, by the way, because we're going to run out of time.
Because people, the retail market for electric vehicles isn't panning out the way they thought it would. And your acquaintance, I can sort of see, I would feel more comfortable driving a modern version of this, than a fully electric vehicle, because there is something nice about burning a very small amount of fuel to do the same thing, but also I think that the environmental impacts of both would be very close because of the various things you have to do to get electric materials for a battery. It's a complex argument, isn't it? I don't think there is any one answer to the future of the motor vehicle.
No. Well, let's finish there.
Flipping out.
That's profound, wasn't it?
That was. That was another insight.
Stop it. On that note, thank you, James.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming along for the ride. We may do another one of these. Pod/vod/ I don't know, we may just go back when our videographer's free again. We might just make more normal car reviews, who knows. So thanks for joining us. You can see more at autocar.co.uk, themagazineshop.com/autocars, or write to us, autocar@haymarket.com with your thoughts. See you next time.
Bye.